Welcome! Today I'm going to be playing through Xenoblade 1, but what makes this playthrough special is I won't be collecting any experience, effectively meaning I'm going to be stuck at level 1 throughout the entire game, all to answer the question of, is this challenge completable? So the game opens with no trouble. Dumbband, Dixon and Mumcar don't collect any experience, so it's just a case of getting through the prologue as quickly as possible. That is until Mumcar decides he wants to play a long game of hide and seek and goes missing. 1 year later, Mumcar still hasn't been found, but we didn't really like him anyway, so we go into our first battle with Shulk and Ryan. Unfortunately, there's no way to skip this battle, which brings me to explain the first bit of bad news. So I do not have the capability or resources to mod the game to make it so I don't actually collect any experience, meaning this challenge is immediately lost, as after both back-to-back encounters with the Crabble and Caterpile, I get enough XP to reach level 2, and although to my knowledge there's no way to avoid this fight, if we just pretend the fight never happened, the challenge can be continued. Now, what's going to make this challenge a lot easier is enabling expert mode, as expert mode makes it so I only collect experience from battle and also allows me to adjust my party's level, meaning I can put Shulk and Ryan back down to level 1. Why Monolithsoft made it so expert mode doesn't bank all experience, I have no clue, but even if they had, unless I missed it, you can't even enable expert mode until after the first battle with Shulk anyway. Oh, and before I continue, I should probably update the title of this video. Anyway, we breeze through the first few story beats and head back to Colony 9, talk to Dixon, get Shulk to show Fiora his new miming routine, and head off to collect some ether cylinders with Ryan. But Fiora really likes our vibe, so she decides to come along too. Speaking of Fiora, this is where the next problem arises. As you can see, Fiora is level 2. This is because, even with expert mode enabled, you cannot lower a character's level below than what they were introduced at, meaning Fiora and future characters will all be stronger than Shulk and Ryan. However, this fact will be a key component in getting through some later fights. Getting through Tephra Cave is a breeze, and it's not until we get to fighting the ancient machines protecting the ether cylinders that we hit our next wall in progress. So something I learned while making this video was that in Xenoblade 1 there's a mechanic that makes it so depending on the level difference between you and your opponent, there will be different effects applied. Now I'm going to be honest, I'm not sure I fully understand the system, but using the ancient machines as an example, because they are 7 levels above us, that means we deal half as much damage, get a 140% debuff on our hit rate, and the enemy gets a 35% block rate. So yeah, it's not looking good in our current state, as it's almost impossible to survive long enough to even deal a shred of damage, so you might be thinking this is where the challenge ends. However, by coming back to this point in New Game Plus, it was possible to do it. However, as you might expect, the party had endgame gear, but it did prove to me that with the right gear I may have a chance. So I went around doing all the side quests I was able to and came back to challenge the machines once more. So yeah, this is where the challenge ends. It's what I thought. But the good thing about the definitive edition is it includes a casual mode, that when enabled completely removes the level difference penalties, making it so I could actually hit the machines. So I should probably update the title of the video once again. And with casual mode enabled, I come back to the fight and I still lost. Now completely back at square one, I was running out of options. Not being able to go above level 1 meant Shulk and co were never going to be able to learn new arts. And even if I maxed out the levels on everyone's current arts, would it even be enough? So after mulling it over for a while, I came to one conclusion. I was going to have to move the goalposts again. Naturally, this wasn't a decision I was satisfied with, and perhaps if I were a Xenoblade combat expert, I'd be able to pull it off. But now the challenge had become less about not collecting XP, but more about how I could overcome each battle as its own unique puzzle, without literally just playing the game like a normal person. So the solution I came up with from that point on was adding a new rule. Because battles are the only way to gain experience in expert mode, if I defeat a monster that gives me enough experience to unlock an art from level 1, then that's fair game. If not, then I have to reset back down to level 1, so to put that into context, casual mode made it so I could now take on the lower level unique monsters, and starting with the evil Rangot, upon successfully defeating it, the party was granted enough XP to reach level 3, making it so Shulk unlocked Slit Edge. After this battle however, I'd have to go back down to level 1. So to unlock the next art, I'd need an encounter that jumped Shulk straight from level 1 to 5 to unlock Stream Edge. Anyway, by doing this method I was finally able to beat the ancient machines, and continue with the rest of the game. So the mech on attack Colony 9, Duncan allows Shulk to unlock the secrets of the Monado, and Fiora decides to crash the mobile artillery into a faced mechon. Upset by this, the faced mechon leaves, and Shulk vows for revenge. The next day it turns out that after the mechon attack, Fiora decided to play hide and seek, so Shulk sets off to look for her. But you can't have a rainbow without Ryan, so he tags along too. Heading through a new route in Tephra Cave brings us to our next wall, the Arachno Queen. Now here's the 411 folks. Because the Monado has replaced Shulk's original weapon, we no longer have access to inflicting break upon our enemies. This problem would have been solved, as by now the game expects us to have unlocked Stream Edge, but because our level has never gone higher than 3, we have no way of inflicting break. Furthermore, because of the sheer number of enemies present in the Arachno fight, it's impossible just to focus on the Arachno Queen herself and live to tell the tale, which leaves us with only one option. And no, it's not to adjust our level to 5 and then back down. So when I introduced the new rule, I was very specific to say I just needed an encounter that jumped Shulk from level 1 to 5. And sure enough, there are just enough enemies in the Arachno Queen's arena to push Shulk and Ryan to level 5, unlocking Stream Edge and making the rest of the fight a breeze. It was at this point I foolishly expected the rest of the battles to become much easier, but little did I know I had a reality check coming very soon. So leaving Tephra Cave, we take a look at the game's box art and proceed to find an empty buggy, which spurs Shulk to attack the local wildlife for no reason whatsoever. But this completely backfired, however, as the pair of Berserk Arden gave me way more trouble than I anticipated, and unfortunately there wasn't really a lot I could do at this point, so I just had to run around Gow Plain, grinding out AP for my arts, and getting enough money to buy better gear off the Nopon merchants outside Colony 6. But after slamming my head against the wall enough times, I eventually broke through it. Though I wasn't the only one who sustained brain damage, as both Shulk and Ryan started to talk to some mysterious third person who wasn't even there. But not wanting to leave the buggy out there, Shulk repairs it and takes it back to the Colony 6 refugee camp, where we gaslight Sharla to join our team and learn that Colony 6 was also attacked by the Mechon and are now using it as a fortress. Heading off to liberate Colony 6, we get sidetracked as the party gets attacked by a Mechon M71. Now I don't know why, but I expected having a level 10 party member on the team would make most of these battles a lot more manageable, but surprisingly this was not the case. But it was at this point that I generally learned the rhythm of overcoming these obstacles, as I had the best gear available, so the only option was to do the new quests and continue leveling up my arts. So now having taken out the M71, we could continue on to Colony 6, where two of the toughest battles awaited. The first was this group of Mechon at the start of the Ether Mine, and the problem at this point was I had done all the available quests and had the best gear, so I didn't really have any options to get stronger. So what it really came down to was just using the optimal method to take down the weakest Mechon first, and then having enough luck that the other Mechon didn't use high damaging ether attacks that would wipe me out in seconds. I'm sure if I'd used gems optimally it would have been easier, but most of the gear I was using didn't have any gem slots, so I was just brute forcing it as usual. The next hurdle came from the pair of Mechon M84 blocking the way to the bottom of the ether mine. This is where I honestly thought this challenge would end, as it didn't matter what I tried, I was unable to get past them. The only option I had was maxing out the party's arts, but I'd already taken out the more manageable unique monsters, meaning grinding AP would take forever, so I had to look for another solution. At first I looked to see if I could find a way to sequence break and get past the Mechon, but unfortunately this seemed impossible. It was then when I looked at speedruns to see if there was any trick I could be using to make the fight easier, and sure enough, there was. While watching Lightning Leon's speedrun, I noticed when he got to the same fight as I, he lured one of the M84s to the edge of the arena, only to be pushed off by the other, thus making the fight significantly easier, and upon my attempts, I couldn't do it. I guess it just requires an insane amount of luck. Luck that I simply didn't have. But that's okay, as on this channel, we make our own luck, mainly in the form of brute force, but still luck. And after about 100 attempts, RNG went in my favour and I was able to successfully take out the pair of Mechon. Not wasting any time, we move on to fight Zord, a new faced Mechon who was leading the forces occupying Colony 6. Now this is going to seem a bit suspicious, but I don't have any footage of me beating the first phase of the Zord fight. This is because I genuinely forgot the fight ended prematurely, and skipped the cutscene thinking the fight would continue before I started to record. The fight itself wasn't very hard, as it just came down to repeatedly using chain attacks to topple Zord, and then repeating the process until a quarter of his health had been diminished. But now having liberated Colony 6, after dumping Zord in the pure ether, we head out of the mines using the Fright Elevator, only for Zord to use an Uno reverse card and return from the dead. It took a couple of attempts, but this fight wasn't too bad either. The only thing worth noting was I couldn't block Zord's Bazooka 2 move, as I hadn't upgraded the Monado shield art at all. Zord gives the party some foreshadowing about the true power of the Monado, before also heading off to go play hide and seek. But we didn't really like Zord anyway, so we leave him alone. Leaving the mines, Metalface ambushes the party, but it's okay, as now we have Dunban and Dixon fighting with us, so the ambush was unsuccessful, and that's where I'm going to end the video. Doing this challenge has once again reinforced the idea that it's possible to overcome any obstacle with enough determination, but I'm choosing to end things here as I want to know people's thoughts. What started off as a no XP challenge slowly had to be changed and adapted to become possible, so what I want to know is, how do people feel about this? Is it still fair to be called a no EXP challenge? Was there anything I could have done differently to make things easier on myself? Or was there something I completely missed that would have been great to know from the start? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and with that said,